So, 6% is the average. That seems to be the offer. Now, this was what the independent pay review body suggested. Do you think that's a reasonable offer? That's what John Glenn, the Secretary to the Treasury, has said.
Yeah, well, you actually, but the whole idea of having an independent group try to set it was it's independent. It's not the government trying to force it. It's not a trade union issue. I've got actually a group of people who are sitting there trying to say what would be the fair result. The trouble is, of course, whilst you still got high levels of inflation and for a relatively short term, people get drawn towards that. Then you've also got, say, the doctors going back over the years saying, actually, I'm poorer because of. That can't be fixed immediately. What you should be saying is, right, we're going to get the Pay Commission to look at what the pay levels should be over a period of years, and if that means actually then putting them back, not 30%, but to a higher level, do it over time. We can't do it in one go right now. We haven't got the money. We haven't been told where the money's coming from anyway.
Now, you're an economic expert. There has been quite a lot of disagreement over whether pay rises in the public sector can be inflationary. The government says yes, that's why we have to have some restraint. Other economists say no, this is simply a reaction to the inflation we're already seeing. Where do you lie?
It is a reaction, but will it have an impact into inflation? The answer is yes, it will. Anything, if you're putting the prices up, will feed through to it. One of the issues you've got to try and do with this is have to tackle inflation, but not the way we're seeing at the moment from the Bank of England, by putting interest rates up. Putting interest rates up is normally used actually as a mechanism to try and slow down inflation if there's a consumer boom. What boom? There isn't one. And so actually, the trouble with the Bank of England, it's a bit like a man who owns a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. And so this nail, therefore, is putting up interest rates. That won't help.
The wrong diagnosis of the problem by the Bank of England and the wrong medicine. Let me bring in my panel. Jo, would you agree with that assessment?
Well, I perhaps wouldn't be so harsh on the Bank of England, but I'm not an economist. I mean, I think, it is good that the independent pay review body have come with a figure that is more than obviously the government was hoping. The government have handled this industrial strife incredibly badly because first of all they said, well, we can't sit and talk to the nurses, whoever, because we need to go with what the independent pay review body comes up with. Then they said, sounds like it's going to be 6%, we can't afford that. They've had these figures knocking around for some time, so they could have started talks earlier. So we've got the teachers' unions saying, yes, probably this is OK, and we have been told by the government that it will not come out of school budgets. I mean, the real problem, and I think of the nitty-gritty of this, and this is where the government will play nasty, pitting people against each other, that if you want to pay these people more, well, you're going to get cuts to this, that or the other, which may or may not be vital services. Yeah. And, the truth of the matter is, Emily, they could stop HS2, for instance. That has just swallowed billions.
That is very true.
Well,
we can all point to government waste.
There's all the government waste on COVID, the absolute failure to get any of the fraudulently taken money back. There's money being squandered on all sorts of ridiculous things.
There absolutely is. Emma, do you think, though, that the BMA, this is the doctors' union, need to get real?
Yes.
Go on, tell me.
Well, they want 35%. That's outrageous. It's not going to happen. And when we're talking about the independent recommendations, you are talking about questions of fairness because this is coming from the public purse. And so the government's saying, caveat, I'm not an economist, so I don't really understand, inflation, interest rates and the knock-on effects of those things. But the governments say that they're going to do this through efficiencies, not necessarily from taking... They will have to reorganise and rejig their own budgets to make this work. But you can only do that so far. And this is coming at a time when, yes, of course, the argument the unions make is that these people are suffering from the cost of living crisis, but of course all taxpayers are suffering from the cost of living crisis. And so you have to think about how you use public money carefully. And of course everybody would like nurses, doctors, police officers to be paid more, particularly frontline staff in the NHS. Of course, everyone wants them to be paid more, but you have to do it in a way that is reasonable and responsible because you're dealing with, and when we say public money, what we mean is our money.
Our money, we do. Justin, to wrap things up, the politics of this, Keir Starmer He's sitting on the fence a little. He won't say whether he'd boost pay further. Is that just sensible politics, or are there going to be a lot of very disappointed public sector workers come the next election?
He's playing for time. Why? Because this Wednesday you're going to have to see the factory output inflation figures, and they're going to come down quite dramatically, I think. Suddenly seeing figures like sort of 3 to 4%, something like, fingers crossed. That's not the full inflation, but that's factory output. That's a very good sign. So if you can kick this ball further along, then it's less of an issue, because people are asking them for a high wage rise, but actually inflation's come down, then it's the man making life a bit easier for him. But, so he's fighting next year's election.
He's playing politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is what you would expect from a leader of the opposition.
Isn't he?
He is playing safe.
And you can't... it would be foolish for him to say, oh, I'm going to guarantee, X% to every public sector. I mean, he can't, because he doesn't know what the finances are.
It is very annoying